Thank you, and hi to everyone, and welcome to the talk on the OWASP Web Security Testing Guide. The talk will introduce the project history, the methodology that now we are at version 4.2, an example of test, and how to use the guide. And then as a conclusion, how to use the OWASP resources together with the OWASP testing guide, because it is really important to have a vision at 360 degrees, not only focused on the testing. Who am I? We had just an introduction. I'm contributing in OWASP since 2002, and I am the CEO of IMQ Minded Security, that is an IMQ group company. So let's start on the project history. First of all, why OWASP? OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project, and was born in 2001. Today we are celebrating 20 years. The idea was to create an open source community able to deliver standard and methodologies and tools for companies worldwide. Sharing knowledge is the mission of the OWASP in order to help companies to fight with the same weapons to the possible attacks. In this slide, you can see what some companies are doing. So some companies today do not understand the game of what they are playing. So OWASP can help with the knowledge. OWASP has hundreds of projects, starting from the builders and the developers to protect what they are building, and then for the auditor to detect the vulnerabilities, and then we have projects for the software development life cycles, like Sam, as we said. Why the OWASP testing guide? The OWASP testing guide is a community-driven for all the enterprises guide. This is really important because you can find today a lot of other topics related to the web security, but what is really different is that it's not an idea of a couple of authors, but is a contribution of hundreds of authors and hundreds of reviewers that together bring the idea and create a methodology that could be able to run everywhere in the world. This guide is for the tester, so it's not for developers, but also the developers should understand what is a vulnerabilities to build more secure software. Here is the testing guide history. As you can see, we started in 2004, thanks to Daniel Kapper, with the first web application penetration testing checklist, and then from December 2006, we started a new guide with Ian Carey and me. That was the OWASP testing guide version 2, the first big methodology worldwide. On the right, you can see the number of authors and reviewers that are working on this field. And from 2019, we have Elisad and Rick Mitchell that did a huge work translating, migrating the contents from the OWASP wiki to the OWASP GitHub. And today, we have all the contents on the GitHub. You can contribute implementing the new guide. So Elisad and Rick Mitchell today are the leaders of the new web security testing guide, and they are continuously reaching new people that can do an improvement on the guide. So today, we have the Web Security Testing Guide version 4.2, and it is the most comprehensive open source security testing guide on the web. We said it comes after years of development of effort, and we had hundreds of contributors. Here you can see some citations from Denise, Gary McGraw, etc. You can use the URL and go to download the PDF or go on the GitHub to improve the project. So the project is something live that continuously is improving. Just to focus on the testing guide means to have a running application. So the target is not during the development, but at the end of the development. So we have the application running and we can perform the test. Here is, for example, a vulnerability on an old JForum version where in the username field it was possible to inject meta character like this one, and you can see the output. That means that there is not an encoding strategies, and it is possible to execute JavaScript on the user browser. So you can take the control of the browser of the user in that case. The OWASP code review guide, it is another interesting project that focuses on the source code. So this project is able to perform this kind of analysis during the development. And here you can see the same vulnerability from the source point of view. At the line 5, something is missing here, and the username is not currently validated. There is not the encoding strategy, so the vulnerability is coming. Regarding the methodology, we start from the section that describes the framework and how it is important not only to implement the testing strategies, but also all the strategies before the development, during the definition and design phase, and during the development. After that, we can perform the testing. So it is really important, again, to have a strategy that can help to understand what are all the problems and the issues to solve before implementing the test. So here comes the OWASP SAM standard de facto that helps all the companies to implement a software security roadmap at 360 degrees. Regarding the methodology, today we have 12 categories, starting from the information gathering and ending by API testing. At the moment, we have a total of 99 controls to test and to implement during the activities of testing. So, for example, for the authentication testing, we have 10 tests to perform, meaning to identify all the possible vulnerabilities on the authentication field in order to identify if it's possible to bypass the authentication schema, for example. Here you can see the input validation testing. You know that input validation means a lot from a testing point of view, because we identify the main vulnerabilities in this field. So you can see on the right all the tests that we can perform during this kind of test. So starting from reflected cross-site scripting, command injection, SQL injection, etc. Here we can have a look to a particular test, for example, the more easy to explain, the testing for cross-site scripting, reflected cross-site scripting. Before the example, it is important to say that in every single article of test, we focus on what is the right tool to use for this particular test. So we will have a lot of open source tool to use to perform a particular test, but OWASP is the king of tool that we use during the activities. So here you can see, for example, the browser, then the OWASP that is basically an HTTP proxy that collect the post and the get information, and we send to OWASP Jewish shop application, for example, that is another excellent OWASP project. And using the OWASP app, it is possible to test all the possible categories that we already said. Testing for cross-site scripting, here is an example. So for each of the 99 tests that we have to perform, we have a description of the test. We write how to test. We do some practical example. So, for example, here on the right, we do what are the expected results and the tool to use and the references that you can go deeply on the web to understand better this kind of test. So regarding the testing for cross-site scripting, here you can see the left angle bracket. That this is the worst meta character available on the net. So it is the nightmare for all the JavaScript engine. And all the user interacting with online services user and browser that has a JavaScript engine. So it is really important from a developing point of view to adopt a good strategies to manage this kind of character. And on the right, you can see that the right choice is to encode this kind of meta character. Why it is important to encode this character? Because if a script like the red one is going to from the browser to the server, the application, and there is no controls, this will be executed in the JavaScript engine. But if we adopt the right countermeasure, like in the right, in the green line, it is possible to not execute this kind of particular attack. So let's see, for example, a fake example of a bank where there is a search functionality and where you can put all the input that you want. So, for example, you can put XSS test without metachar, and you will observe the output. The output is something like that. So you can notice that the input that you are sending to the application will be used by the application to create a page. That not means that there is a vulnerability. Just to identify the vulnerabilities, it is sufficient to send a metachar that has a meaning for the JavaScript engine. So again, something like that. Just the metachar is sufficient. But if you can put this kind of script and the result is something like that, that means that the browser will execute exactly the JavaScript on your browser. So here comes the vulnerability. And here is an example on how to test really simple, how to test cross-site scripting in a very simple way. We cannot go deeply to all the tests, but it is important to understand how to use the methodology, because we see that all the companies are adopting, more companies are adopting the web security testing guide, but maybe in not the right manner. So the right manner is in this slide. It is important to perform a test, have a report, but then it is important that the development team should be involved in fixing the vulnerabilities, to understand where is the vulnerability. And here you can see the code, the vulnerable code, and what is the countermeasure to implement to avoid the vulnerabilities we identified. Then it is important to perform another test and have a kind of retest report in order to be sure that every single vulnerabilities or the more critical vulnerabilities are fixed in the right manner. Why this slide? Because this is a typical desk of the security manager where SDLC is not working well. So tons of records not well managed by the company, but they do many tests and they are not able to manage. Why? Because in generally, there is too much time to remediate the vulnerability. So for example, the manager received the report and maybe it took 1 week to 1 month to give the report to the developer team, and then the developer team after it took 2 weeks or 6 months to fix it. That's not possible today. Today, we need an instant security feedback. So it is really important to have immediately feedback when we identify vulnerabilities, and the developer team as the other components of the team that are involved in the development process should identify how to fix and fix immediately. So the problem today is not to identify vulnerabilities, because we know that implementing software, meaning that we will find vulnerabilities. But the real key today, it is to have a team that is able to manage all the vulnerabilities that you identify every day. So I'm going to the conclusion. So talking about the testing guide, the question is, testing is the solution to software security? The answer in brief is no, because testing is just one dimension of the software security problem. You need to grow. The companies need to grow also in other dimensions, like standard process awareness and building teams able to fix as soon as possible. So it is important to adopt new strategies and in growing culture on software security. So again, here are some of the projects we already said that we have more than 150 active projects today in OWASP, but we have a project for builders, for example, the OWASP proactive controls, the top 10, the OWASP cheat sheets that helps the builder to build more secure software. And for the breakers, we already said, see the OWASP testing guide and the OWASP code review guide, but also it is important to have the management aligned with the problem of software security. So again, it is really important to have a look of how to implement a software security roadmap. That's why, from our point of view, it is important to have a roadmap designed with the OWASP, that is the software assurance maturity model that today coming to version 2, and it is becoming the standard de facto to implement a software security roadmap inside your company. Here you can see the security testing is just one of the 15 security practices that are inside the model. So again, testing is really important. Here I explain how to test just a simple control, but in the company it is really important to have a strategy at 360, and again the OWASP is really important for this goal. So the conclusion is that we have to stop thinking that software security is only testing. The OWASP Web Security Testing Guide, it is really important, and we see that many companies worldwide are implementing it and using it, but it's just a piece of the puzzle. So it is really important to start sharing security bugs, fix flaws and bugs as soon as possible, and then, yes, the Web Security Guide can support the company to identify vulnerabilities in your software, but it is really important to adopt all the OWASP security standards, such the OWASP or the OWASP Software Security 5-dimension framework that allow you to create a software security roadmap. So that's all. Thank you for joining the talk. And